I see a lot of businesses thinking they have a sales problem when what they actually have is an operations problem. If your revenue is underperforming right now, and your first move is to push harder on sales, there is a real chance you're solving the wrong problem. And let me tell you something, solving the wrong problem is not free. And in this episode, I'm going to show you how to tell when a sales problem is actually an operations problem in disguise. We will look at 3 places where this happens most often, which are fulfillment, and here I'm referring to delivery and service, capacity, or workload if you will, and unit economics. Listen closely, because by the end of the episode, I will give you a practical way to trace the real bottleneck in your own business, before you waste more time, money, and attention solving the wrong thing. But before that, welcome back to AppliedStuff. My name is Lilia, and this is the place where ideas meet practical application. My goal is simple, to help you think deeper and act smarter. And if you get value from this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. It really means a lot to me. Alright, so why does this misdiagnosis happen so consistently? The thing is, it's not because people are stupid. It's because of how businesses are built to measure things. Revenue is often the most visible number in any company. It's on the dashboard, it's in the board deck. It's what the CEO gets asked about every quarter. And because sales is the department that somehow owns the revenue number, when revenue drops, that's where all the attention usually goes. But here's what that approach often misses. Revenue is not just a sales metric. Revenue reflects what the whole business is doing. How you attract customers, how you price, how you deliver, and whether your customers stay. Of course, cash collection matters too, but it is a separate cash conversion question. That said, sales is just the most visible part of a much longer chain. So when the number drops, sales is where the symptom shows up, but the cost can be 2 or 3 steps away. Let me give you an example. Imagine a mid-sized company that sells industrial equipment. Good product, solid reputation in their market, but the last 2 quarters, revenue is trending down. And the CEO walks into the room and says, "We need more pipeline. Let's hire 2 more sales reps and let's increase the ad budget." And on the surface, yes, that sounds like a logical move, doesn't it? But look at the actual data. Their close rate is fine, and their pipeline is fine. So what is the problem then? The reality is that lead times on delivery have gone from 3 weeks to 7. Customers are placing orders, but waiting, getting frustrated, and canceling before the equipment even ships. Some of them are going to competitors who can deliver faster. Now, think about that for a second. The sales team is doing their job, they're closing deals, but the operations behind the sale, the warehouse, the logistics, the fulfillment process simply can't keep up. And on the dashboard, it shows up as cancelled orders and lost deals. And someone in the room is about to say, "We need better leads." So the catch? There is an uncomfortable layer underneath this. Operational failures are often spread across teams, so they're easier to rationalize. Missed sales targets are easier to pin on one leader. That makes sales the easiest place to point, even when the real bottleneck sits elsewhere. And in many organizations, this creates a political incentive to keep diagnosing everything as a sales problem, because it is the path of least organizational resistance. Great. Now, let's get specific. There are 3 common places where operational breakdowns can disguise themselves as sales problems. Number 1, fulfillment, or as we said, delivery and service. This one is probably the most common and the most hard to notice. What happens is that post-sale hustles reduce lifetime value. By the way, for those wondering, lifetime value is just a fancy way of saying the total amount of money a customer spends with you over their entire relationship with your business. In plain English, the customer bought, amazing. But what happens after they bought is so slow, annoying, and unprofessional that they are less likely to come back, less likely to refer anyone, or they cancel entirely. Now, let's use illustrative numbers here. I will simplify it a bit just to make the message across. Picture an e-commerce business spending aggressively on customer acquisition. Facebook ads, Google ads, influencer campaigns, you name it. Conversion rate is solid, and people are buying. But let's say delivery is averaging 9 days instead of 3. Packaging is arriving damaged more often than it should. And when someone wants to return something, the process takes weeks and multiple emails. As you might understand, in a scenario like that, repeat purchase rates can drop significantly. And here's where the misdiagnosis often happens. The marketing team looks at that number and says, "Well, we have a retention problem. We need better re-engagement campaigns." Now, let us pause here and trace the chain carefully. Slow delivery can create disappointment. It often reduces repeat purchases, referrals, and lifetime value. Once lifetime value weakens, acquisition spend gets harder to justify, and revenue growth starts to flatten. And eventually, someone says, "We have a sales problem." In many businesses, that is not a marketing problem first. It's an operations problem showing up in marketing metrics. But the symptom can travel through several links in the chain before it shows up on the revenue line. And that's what makes it so hard to see. Perfect. Moving to number 2, capacity or workload constraints. This is the one that stings the most because it usually hits businesses that are actually doing well. The concept is a throughput bottleneck capping revenue regardless of demand. In simple words, you could sell more, but your operations literally cannot handle more. So you either turn customers away, delay them so long they leave, or deliver such inconsistent quality that your reputation starts working against you. And hey, you probably lived this one. You finally get the demand you've been asking for. Sales is closing deals, and the pipeline is full, but your business can't keep up. Imagine your sales team goes out and find, let's say, 100 hungry customers, but unfortunately your kitchen can only cook 50 meals. If you keep pushing for more sales, the kitchen is going to explode. Quality will decrease, customers will get angry, and eventually they will just walk away. Congratulations, you have hit a bottleneck, a limit on what your business can actually handle. And the worst part of all this, customers are highly unlikely to complain. They will just go away, and therefore you will most probably never connect their absence to the workload that caused it. Great, we are now moving to number 3, to operational costs that make sales unprofitable. To be honest, this is the sneakiest one. Because with this one, sales actually looks great. The concept here is negative contribution margin on certain sales activities. This might sound complicated, but don't worry, it will start making sense in a second. In plain English, you are selling more, but your operations are eating the margin behind certain sales. Revenue goes up on the dashboard, but profit doesn't follow. So this way business can end up busier and poorer at the same time. Let me give you a simple example. Say you sell a product for $50 and your normal fully loaded variable cost is $35. That leaves $15 of contribution margin. Not huge, but workable. And so you run a 15% discount to hit the quarterly target. Revenue per order drops to $42.50 and contribution margin falls to $7.50 before any extra strain hits operations. Now, if the promotion also drives more support contacts, more temporary warehouse labor, or depending on your product category, higher returns, that remaining margin can disappear very quickly. And the business, as you might understand, just did more work for less money. And the point here is not that promotions are always bad. They can drive volume, build traffic, and serve real strategic goals. The point is that you have to measure the full economics and not just the top line lift. Because if you don't, the feedback loop points the wrong way. Sales looks at the volume and says, the promotion worked, and finance may not see the margin erosion for weeks. By then, the next promotion is already planned, and that is no bueno. Alright, so if the problem can hide in any of those places, how do we actually find it? Here's what I do. Instead of starting at the top of the funnel, which is what almost every business does when revenue drops, you work backward. You ask, where is revenue actually leaking? And you trace the problem in reverse until you find where the value chain breaks. So far, so good. Now, let's pause here and think of the steps that can be followed. Firstly, I would start with bookings or confirmed orders. Are your orders or contracts actually being placed? If customers are reaching your checkout, your order form, your contract stage, and then dropping off, that's one signal. But if they're booking, then the leak is further down the chain. Next, I would focus on fulfillment and retention. Are those orders being delivered, accepted, and retained? Or are cancellations, returns, and churn erasing value after the sale? This is where you look at delivery timelines, return rates, support ticket volume, churn timing, and I could continue. All the operational reality behind the book number. And this is usually the moment that gets uncomfortable, because you're looking at the data and it's just not pointing where you expected. You came in thinking you had a pipeline problem, but the numbers are telling you that customers you already won are leaving. because of what happened after they bought. And as you can imagine, that is a completely different problem, which requires a completely different fix. Okay, now what? Move to capacity, to workload. Ask yourself questions like, can your operations actually absorb the volume you're selling? Are your people overloaded? Are project timelines realistic? Is quality degrading under the pressure? Because if your system is maxed out, adding more sales pressure often doesn't grow the business. It can worsen the customer experience and damage future demand. After that, check cash conversion. Are invoices accurate, timely, and collectible? Sometimes the product was sold and the work was delivered, but the money never arrived. This is a separate problem from revenue recognition. It's a cash flow problem, but it absolutely affects how healthy the business feels on paper. And finally, step 5. Only now do I look at the sales process itself. And you will ask me, why look at sales last? And I will say, because by the time you get here, you already identified the operational causes. If the upstream steps are clean, then yeah, most probably you have a sales problem. But if something broke earlier in the chain, no amount of sales optimization will solve it. Now, let me say this straight. If you are listening to this and a specific part of your business just flashed through your mind, let's say a delivery issue, a capacity problem, or a customer complaint pattern that you've been meaning to look into, pay attention to that instinct. Because the businesses that have this problem almost never know they have it. But that is exactly what makes it so expensive. Think about the steps. Most often, the most expensive mistake in business is not a bad quarter. Instead, it is spending 3 quarters fixing the wrong problem. Because the symptom showed up on sales when the real disease lived in operations. The beauty, however, is that once you see this, you cannot unsee it. Every time someone says, we need more leads, you will instinctively ask, but what's happening to the leads we already have? Every time someone proposes a promotion, you will ask yourself, what's the full economic cost of that volume? And every time revenue dips, you will trace backward before you spend forward. That is an operating instinct. And as for me, it is one of the most valuable instincts a business owner can develop. Now, some very important caveats. Please listen closely because this part really matters. First, sometimes it is genuinely a sales problem. Bad positioning, wrong target market, weak messaging, poor pricing strategy. These are all real. The point of this episode is not that operations is always the answer. The point is that operations should be ruled out before you double down on sales fixes. Diagnose first, and only then act. Second, this framework works best for businesses that already have product market fit and some existing customer flow. If you are a pre-revenue startup struggling to get your first 10 customers, most likely you don't have an operations problem disguised as a sales problem. You have a sales problem, or possibly a product problem, but you haven't built enough system yet for operations to be the hidden bottleneck. Third, this approach requires honest internal data. If your business doesn't check fulfillment quality, churn reasons, capacity utilization, or return rates, you literally cannot run this diagnostic. And that, by the way, that itself is an operations problem. And finally, the uncomfortable one. Company politics usually make this hard. If you have already spent months and a significant budget doubling down on sales, hiring more reps, rebuilding the funnel, or running more ads, admitting that the real problem was in operations means admitting that investment went to the wrong place. And that is a difficult conversation in any organization. But let me tell you something. It's a lot cheaper than keeping everything as is for another 6 months. So here comes the bottom line. When revenue drops, the instinct is to sell harder. But if the leak is in your operations, in how you deliver, how you fulfill, how you absorb capacity, then selling harder just pushes more volume through a broken system. The business job isn't just to grow demand, it's also to make sure the system behind the demand can actually handle it. Think about it. If the car won't go, check the engine first. Don't just blame the driver for not pushing the gas pedal hard enough. And that's about it. Thank you so much for being here. It really means a lot to me. And if you found this episode useful, please give this podcast a 5-star rating and subscribe to this channel. Your support is so precious. By the way, if you prefer listening on the go, AppliedStuff is also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. Also, you will find my socials in the description in case you would like to connect or support this channel. Thank you so much. See you in the next one, and until then, think deeper and act smarter. Bye bye. A quick disclaimer. The content presented on this channel is provided strictly for discussion purposes. Nothing presented should be interpreted as legal, financial, economic, or any professional advice. By consuming this content, you acknowledge that you remain fully responsible for your own decisions. I disclaim any liability for outcomes resulting from the use or interpretation of the information presented. The information may contain errors or omissions, and is provided without warranty of accuracy or completeness.